The Mastermind. This villain relies almost entirely on their superior intellect and strategic planning rather than physical confrontation. They are usually depicted as the spider at the center of the web, manipulating events from a safe distance while others do their bidding. The threat they pose is systemic and psychological, as they often stay several steps ahead of the protagonist, anticipating every move the hero makes. In many stories, the mastermind represents the fear of a power that cannot be fought with fists or weapons, but only with a sharper mind. They often have vast resources, a high social standing, or a complex technological setup that allows them to remain untouchable for most of the film. Their defeat usually comes not from a battle of strength, but when the hero finally manages to disrupt the intricate gears of their long-term plan. This type of villain is essential for thrillers and high-stakes dramas because they provide a constant sense of dread, making the audience feel that the hero is trapped in a game they cannot win. The Psychopath. These characters are defined by a complete lack of empathy, remorse, or traditional human emotions. Unlike other villains who might want money or political power, the psychopath often acts out of a desire for chaos, personal amusement, or a twisted curiosity about human suffering. They are incredibly dangerous because they are fundamentally unpredictable. They do not follow a logical set of rules or a recognizable moral code. This unpredictability creates a unique kind of tension, where the audience never knows when the villain might strike or why. They often take pleasure in breaking the hero's spirit, pushing them to abandon their own morals just to survive. Because they cannot be reasoned with or bought off, the only way to deal with the psychopath is usually through total containment or elimination. They represent the darker, unexplainable side of the human mind, serving as a reminder that some people simply want to watch the world burn without any hope for redemption. The Tragic Villain. This is an antagonist whose descent into evil is rooted in a personal loss, a betrayal, or a series of unfortunate circumstances that the audience can actually understand. They often believe that their actions are justified or even necessary for a greater good, making them the hero of their own internal narrative. Because they have a sympathetic backstory, the conflict becomes emotionally complex for the protagonist and the viewers alike. You might find yourself agreeing with their goals while being horrified by the extreme methods they use to achieve them. This moral ambiguity is what makes the tragic villains so compelling. They aren't evil for the sake of being evil, but rather because they have been broken by the world. Their presence in a film often raises difficult questions about justice, revenge, and whether a good end can ever justify a cruel means. Their eventual downfall is frequently portrayed as a tragedy rather than a simple victory, leaving the hero with a sense of sadness instead of pure triumph. The Force of Nature. This type of villain is characterized by a total lack of dialogue, personality, or human motivation. They are an unstoppable, relentless presence that exists solely to hunt, destroy, or consume. Whether it is a silent slasher in a mask, a giant predatory animal, or an alien organism, the force of nature represents a primal fear that cannot be bargained with or understood. They do not have a grand plan or a tragic past, they simply move forward with terrifying efficiency. This type of antagonist is most common in horror and survival films, where the focus is on the character's desperate attempts to stay alive against an overwhelming physical threat. The fear comes from the realization that this villain cannot be convinced to stop and will never tire. They are a constant, looming shadow that forces the protagonist to strip away their civilized layers and rely on their most basic survival instincts. The Corrupt Leader. These villains operate within the established systems of society, using their positions of authority to exploit and oppress others. They might be a high-ranking politician, a wealthy CEO, or a military commander who hides their malice behind a mask of respectability and law. The danger of the corrupt leader lies in their ability to use the law and public institutions as weapons against the hero. While the protagonist may be morally right, the villain makes them look like a criminal or an outcast in the eyes of the public. This creates a frustrating obstacle where the hero cannot simply fight back without risking everything they stand for. These stories usually explore themes of institutional failure and the struggle for truth in a world where the people in charge are the ones causing the most harm. Defeating this villain requires exposing their true nature to the world, stripping away their shield of legitimacy before they can be brought to justice. The mirror image. This antagonist is designed to be a direct reflection of the hero, often possessing the same skills, powers, or origins. They serve as a physical representation of the dark path the hero could have taken if they had made a different choice at a critical moment in their life. By facing the mirror image, the protagonist is effectively facing their own worst impulses and weaknesses. This creates a deeply personal conflict that goes beyond physical combat, as every blow landed is a reminder of the hero's own vulnerability. These villains often spend time explaining to the hero how similar they truly are, attempting to break the hero's resolve by proving that there is no real difference between them. The climax of these stories usually involves the hero proving their moral superiority by choosing a path the villain was unable or unwilling to take, finally distinguishing themselves from their darker half. The twist villain. This character begins the story as a supportive friend, a trusted mentor, or even a seemingly harmless background character. They spend a large portion of the film building a relationship with the protagonist and the audience, only to reveal their true, malevolent intentions in the final act. This betrayal is designed to be a shocking, emotional blow that recontextualizes every previous scene in the movie. The power of the twist villain comes from the destruction of trust, leaving the hero feeling isolated and vulnerable exactly when they need help the most. For the audience, this creates a high level of rewatchability, as they look back for clues and subtle hints that were missed during the first viewing. This type of villain is a staple of mystery and suspense films, where the central conflict isn't just about winning a fight, but about uncovering a hidden truth that was right in front of the characters the entire time. The Beast. This category includes monsters, prehistoric creatures, and alien life forms that operate on pure animal instinct. They are not evil in the traditional sense, as they do not possess a human sense of morality. They're simply predators at the top of the food chain. The conflict arises from the characters entering the beast's territory or being hunted as prey. These villains are often used to explore themes of nature versus civilization, showing how fragile human technology and logic can be when faced with raw biological power. The beast is usually physically superior to the humans, forcing the characters to use their tools, teamwork, and intelligence to find a weakness. There is no room for negotiation or psychological warfare with the beast, making the struggle a pure test of physical survival and quick thinking in the face of a terrifying biological threat. The religious zealot. This villain is driven by a deep, unwavering belief in a higher power, a prophecy, or a specific ideology. They do not see themselves as villains. In fact, they believe they are doing the work of a god or fulfilling a divine destiny. This makes them incredibly dangerous because they are immune to traditional logic or fear. They are willing to sacrifice themselves and thousands of others to achieve what they perceive as a holy or necessary goal. Their conviction often draws followers to them, creating a cult-like atmosphere where the villain's words are treated as absolute truth. The conflict with a zealot is often a battle of ideas and faith, as the hero tries to protect a world that the villain believes is sinful or obsolete. The horror of this antagonist comes from their absolute certainty, reminding us of how dangerous the world can be when someone believes their actions are sanctioned by a higher authority. The henchman. While usually working for a more powerful leader, the henchman is the primary physical obstacle for the hero throughout the story. They are often characterized by a unique physical trait, a specific combat style, or a signature weapon that makes them memorable. While they may not have a complex philosophical motivation, their loyalty to their boss is absolute, and they often provide the most intense action sequences in a film. Sometimes, the henchman is more feared than the main villain because they are the one doing the actual dirty work. Their role is to test the hero's physical limits and deplete their resources before the final confrontation with the mastermind. In some cases, the henchmen may even have their own code of honor or a silent, intimidating presence that makes them a cult favorite among audiences, despite their secondary status in the plot. The Machine. This villain is an artificial intelligence, a robot, or a computer system that has turned against its creators. Unlike human villains, the machine operates on cold, hard logic and efficiency, often concluding that humanity is a problem that needs to be solved or eliminated. They lack emotion, which means they cannot be intimidated, distracted, or appealed to through pity. The threat they pose is often technological, using surveillance, automation, and superior processing power to outmaneuver the protagonist. This type of villain reflects society's anxieties about the rapid advancement of technology and the fear that we might eventually lose control of the tools we created. The battle against the machine is often a struggle to prove that human intuition, emotion, and unpredictability are ultimately more powerful than pre-programmed algorithms and cold metal. The vengeful survivor. This antagonist is driven by a singular event from their past where they were wronged by the hero's family, or society as a whole. Their entire existence is now focused on obtaining revenge against those they hold responsible for their suffering. Unlike the tragic villain, who might have broader goals, the vengeful survivor is hyper-focused on a personal vendetta. They are often willing to destroy everything in their path, including innocent bystanders, just to see their target suffer. This makes them a very personal threat to the protagonist, as the villain knows the hero's history and weaknesses intimately. The story often explores whether the hero actually deserves some of the blame, forcing the audience to reconsider who the good guy really is. The conflict usually ends only when the cycle of violence is broken or when one side is completely destroyed by the weight of their own hatred.